first thing that I want to talk about today is hiring as a founder CEO of a very early stage company, a pre-seed company. So picture this. You had your idea and you're thinking, oh, I want to turn this idea into a product or service and I want this to become a startup. So you think, oh, I need to hire people, I need to, build a team, I need to get people involved to build this stuff with me. I don't know, raise some VC money, but raising is another topic in itself. Use that money to hire people. Don't. If you're in the very, very early stages, there is so much that you can do by yourself. And arguably, I would make the point that you probably have to do it all yourself in the beginning, from building whatever product it is, service, product, whatever, to sales, to marketing, to administrative stuff, so that you learn how to do it and how your industry or niche or concept functions in depth from A to Z. You cannot skip certain parts. I understand that if you're a business background founder like myself, marketing business, you might struggle a little bit with setting up servers, a website, whatever it is in terms of IT. You're not going to be able to build your own IT product from scratch, because you might think you need someone to configure that, to do the IT development. That's partially true. I would argue that 10 years ago, that probably would have been the case. You would have needed at least another person, a co-founder, to be able to build stuff with you as you do the sales and the marketing. Because if you come from the business background with that skill set, it is simply not worthwhile to develop a new set of skill sets to do the IT infrastructure. Or maybe it's a product infrastructure. It doesn't have to be software, it could be hardware, it could be a physical product, it could be, producing glasses or whatnot, and you don't have the manufacturing facilities. But my point, or the point that I eventually am going to make here, is that nowadays there's so much that you could, like in the 21st century that we live in, there's so much that you can do by yourself in software with vibe coding tools such as Lovable, with drag and drop website builders. Then there's also Base44, this basically a Lovable competitor, and all of these websites builders that there are. Shopify, if you have products, it's drag and drop. It's really easy. You can get into it. And the one thing that you have as a founder initially is time. You don't have money, you maybe don't have a lot of resources, but you have time. So sit down, figure it out, do as much as you can yourself or in the founding team. You do not need to hire people. Now, I'm going full circle to my initial point. Usually, and I've been making that mistake in the past, I've been victim of this mistake, especially first-time founders. If they somehow get their hands into capital, whether it is something that they've saved or whether it is VC money or angel money, maybe they're more cautious if it's saved money, but as soon as it's raised money, it's kind of like, you think you need to hire just because that's usually what startups do? Again, don't. Do not until you really need to. There's so much nowadays that you can configure when it comes to product, marketing, sales. And I'm learning this as we speak, because I'm talking to people that are more experienced with me, showing me how to basically set up the entire, now that we have the product, the MVP, first customers, the entire sales pipeline, figuring it out myself, getting the conversions funnels locked down before we eventually go and hire another salesperson. So I know it's kind of sad, because you have this vision of like having a big team and it's awesome, it's vibes, it's startup pizza parties on Fridays, whatever. But the reality is that nothing burns capital as fast as human labor. Yes, of course, you can put down 500K on Google Ads, burn 50K in Meta, Insta ads in a week. Obviously, you can do that. But in terms of like regular growth business expense, I would argue in the typical software startup tech environment, it's human labor that's going to burn you to the ground. you see it all the time, startups failing, and everybody asks, "So what was going on? We had 60 people, Series A. Why? All of a sudden you have this burn rate. You have these people that you can't just suddenly let go of. At least not here where I'm based in Europe. Maybe it's different in the States. And it builds pressure, and eventually builds a narrative where potentially you have a high burn rate and not enough revenue. So that's my point on that, on hiring. Again, I'm speaking primarily through the lenses and goggles of someone in a software startup environment. I'm not talking about maybe manufacturing. If you have a facility where you're producing stuff, yes, it's going to be different. You have some kind of like manufacturing pipeline, you will need people, you will need certain logistics, I understand all that. Again, software is where I'm coming from, maybe digital products. Maybe physical products, because also with physical products, there's so much nowadays that you can like drop ship, import, label, repackage, sell, you get the gist. So I'm gonna try to stick on this red line that I think I've had throughout this video, maybe not. But this is the first more in-depth length content video on why you should not hire too fast, do everything yourself until the very end, until you're literally breaking down because it's too much. But that's usually the point where also there is going to be some revenue coming in, so you're much closer to either being profitable or potentially being break even, which is a much more comfortable place to hire out of than running through raised debt and burn rate through the ground. That's that on hiring in early stage startups.